Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final installment to our review of Better Call Saul. I'm here with DancingSean. We're just going to be diving into episode 13 of season 6, the finale episode. For one, I guess introduce yourself if people do not know who DancingSean is.
I'm DancingSean. I got started on doing YouTube and podcasting for Game of Thrones with History of Westeros, and I'm trying to branch out into doing movie reviews and Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul, by the way, I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't think it's just better than Breaking Bad. I've been saying that for a while. I think it's the best TV show of all time. Uh, I say it with confidence. Like maybe if you're into action, you might like Breaking Bad more. If you're into comedy, you might like, I don't know, The Office more. But when it comes to like the production quality, the performances, the writing, I think it's the best show that's ever been made. And I'm excited to talk about how it all wrapped up here. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I admit, from beginning to end, it was, I could argue, consistent. Like everything wasn't put in there just to be put in there. Like they had a certain goal or end game. Like everything just wrapped up really nice, and there was no surprises. I mean, don't get me wrong, this ending had surprises, but like everything made sense. And they just told a story almost like perfectly. It felt, like we go on how great it is while we are going to go on. But it's a great show. Like it's highly recommended watching. You'd be missing out if you did not watch the show, I feel. So
one thing I had a realization in discussing it with some other people is that one thing that's very good and outstanding about this show and also unique is that as it progresses, the prior seasons and episodes,
uh-huh.
even the prior series, right, Breaking Bad itself, they become better in context. I
Yes.
think, like I think a lot of times when you watch a show, like a lot of shows have some rewatch value, especially shows that maybe have like mystery elements, twists at the end, and you look back and see how they set it up all along. Where there's certainly some elements of that in Better Call Saul, but it's a little bit more of like uh, I mean, I guess it's a legal drama, and a lot of times legal dramas might have some mysterious elements. But this legal drama, quote unquote, it isn't really about like figuring out who did some crime, right? It's not a mystery like that. It's just that the main characters are lawyers and criminals. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And usually we know all the crimes that were committed, that it's not really about like figuring out court cases. It's about the personal lives and relationships of the people involved. Yet, when you go back and rewatch an episode, you still will have these like, oh wow, I see what they were doing, or oh man, I never caught that, or oh geez, they set up this character trait all along. Like I think that, and I think especially in this final season, they're really kind of pushing out. They're really giving us more meaning and insight to even original series Breaking Bad that the
Yeah.
show was kind of spun off of. And I don't know. It's just one of many things about this show that is so impressive is how each episode is making every other episode before it even better.
Yes. No, I agree. So one thing that I thought that was neat about this episode is it's technically a promo or advertisement, but at the very beginning, before they even show the intro, they show a laundry roller, or like it has like suits. There's like different color
Like
suits.
a rack, like a closet rack.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're like, panning um forward, or basically you're seeing like the suits pass each other, and it starts from when I assume Saul was like starting, if I had to be
That
correct, because it's like a
that
brown
first suit
suit
is
with
what he was wearing in season one, episode one, season one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's like very neutral colors, brown, white, and it goes, white, white, orange, blue, and they keep getting more elaborate to where we see like, his like signature suit, I guess you could say, like orange, an orange suit with a red shirt and white and red tie with a blue little handkerchief. But then you get to see the next outfit or uniform is Saul's work shirt, which is white and gray.
Cinnabon work shirt.
Which one? Sorry.
Cinnabon.
Yeah, Cinnabon works correct. And we actually talked about like what color was that, and now they just like show us, it's white and gray, which I think you had mentioned that.
No, I think you're missing it. They were just showing it in black and white.
I never
In real
thought
life,
that
shirt is kind of a blue greenish, like a teal sort of a color. We saw some behind the scenes imagery, and we don't know for sure if they chose that because it represents something or if it just looks good in black and white. It's hard to know for sure.
I never thought about that. That's a good point.
I think they're just showing it to us in black and white. Each one of those suits represented a different moment in the course of the show. The first one is what he was wearing at the very beginning.
Yeah.
The second one, that white suit, he got that suit when he was going to try to get the senior citizens to be his clients.
To do like the white with the orange tie,
wills and stuff. He was trying to look like Matlock. He was trying to look like the TV lawyer Matlock, which is a favorite show among Cedar's citizens.
Okay.
That he was trying to emulate that. And then the next one, if I remember right, it was
gray
with a blue tie.
Blue and red and orange. Yeah, it's like has like a flower-like thing.
There were some hints of red and orange, but it was a little bit more like, I'm gonna say, normal.
Yeah.
Because that was when he was a little bit more of a normal lawyer. He's a little more legitimate when he got that job at Davis and Maine.
That makes sense.
Eventually, he screws that up. And he loses his license, and he becomes Saul Goodman, and he comes back with this new persona, which is all-out flashy, gaudy red jacket.
Yeah.
Criminal lawyer,
But
then we get to
Gene.
But Gene, the aftermath of all that.
But then they show the last hangar, and it's empty.
Yeah.
And this is like I have to give props to.
Reveal it at the end. Did you watch the very end?
I did reveal it at the end. It's the prison suit, and that's why I think this is so clever. But as a marketing, they could easily have shown this as like a teaser. You could even have shown it at the beginning of the season, like something like this.
I had shown that image of the different suits weeks ago.
I was thinking that, yeah. But they give these incredibly well put out marketing strategies where they don't spoil anything, but they still make you think. And I think it's really hard to to tell a story, or I'm sorry, to market something and not have spoilers. Like, people analyze the shit out of stuff. Like the stuff that you were like, they'll be fine by watching this, and then they're like, that's probably later on in the season, so he has to survive to this point. Stuff like that, But this season, there have been no previews, at least in the later half. Maybe the earlier half, I think there was like possibly previews.
In the first 2 or 3 episodes, I wish I could remember better, but definitely the last 7 or 8, or the last half of this.
Like it's almost like misleading. Like you can't even like analyze it because it's like so vague. And then they have like a dialogue,
it's like an image, right, or maybe like a line of dialogue, but the image and the dialogue are from different moments of different episodes. And
exactly.
Sometimes the image is something that like they show it to us in black and white, but then we see it in color. It was definitely very misleading, but like you said, still thought-provoking.
Exactly. And I give props to that. Like it's very hard to market spoiler-free content, I guess you could say. And I thought they did a very artistic way of doing it. It's a good way, I think. But anyways, I thought that was neat that they showed that right before technically the episode. And then you get to see the resolution at the end of the episode. But I guess we'll just dive right into this episode's called Saul Gone, which is an interesting name. Is he gone? Does he die? Is he go somewhere like prison? Does he get vacuumed? Obviously we're pretty sure he's going to get arrested. But anyways, actually, I just now thought of Saul Gone as in there's no more Saul because he's Jimmy now. I just now thought of that. I realized that, but we'll dive more into.
As long as you're talking about the marketing and imagery, there's a poster for every season and every episode. And the poster for this episode was just a black background, and if you can imagine like the kind of, I don't know, like the Better Call Saul logo, it's like a kind of slanted cursive writing with the scales of justice.
Yeah.
It was just the scales of justice. Just a black background with the scales of justice. That was the poster for this episode.
Oh, that's awesome. But so I think we'll talk about all the flashbacks. They kind of go in order throughout the episode, but we'll just like hit them all. The introduction starts with a flashback. So we get a flashback of Jimmy and Mike in the desert, which is
Before you dive into them, I'm going to blow your mind. And
yeah.
I wish I could take credit for having figured this out, but I just read it. It's something I think Vince Gilligan said, one of the showrunners said.
Hmm.
The flashbacks, real quick before you go into each one individually. What were they? There
was Mike.
Hank.
No.
Mike. Sorry, Mike.
Walter, and then they end with a surprise guest. Like, it makes sense, but his brother, Chuck.
Yeah, and so there's a fourth one that I don't. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'm not quite sure how to account for it. But it wasn't like a flashback scene in the episode, but there was another sort of flashback to a character with Marie.
Yes, that was like fast forward. That's like future, present time, whatever you want to call it. Marie, yeah.
Present, yeah, that was of what we're watching, what we've been watching for several episodes. That was the present.
Yeah.
And she's kind of returning from the past. I don't know if it's quite fair to call her a ghost. But those other three were definitely all characters that are dead.
Oh, and yeah.
The showrunners said that they were trying to evoke a Christmas Carol.
Is it Christmas Carol?
Ghosts that come to confront Scrooge about his life, right? And I'm thinking that that Marie was kind of like the ghost of the present, maybe, and she's stirring up these thoughts either in us or him, I don't know, but of the past, you know. And there was a strong theme of like regrets, you know, like the mistakes of his past, the things he hasn't been confronting that he finally does in this episode. But anyway, we can get into the details, but just that's a pretty fun way to think about it, right?
It is. No, it is. I like that. So, like I said, we go back. You know, this is season 4, right? That this happened when they were in the desert, or was it season 3? I think this was season 4. Oh wait, maybe 5. I'm sorry, I forget where. It's either 4 or 5. Oh, you're cutting out.
It was 5. I'm almost certain it was
5.
Okay.
I thought it was the previous season. I just realized I'm like, wait, that's season 5 probably.
I had myself on mute. I didn't realize.
But they're in the desert, and you're like, you know, in my head, I'm like, so why are they showing the scene? Because we've seen this scene. We did see this scene, but we've seen, you know, we know what happens in the desert.
Seen this moment. We didn't get this piece of the conversation.
Exactly. And we get, you know, it's a fun way of bringing back Mike. They do a clever thing of bringing back all these characters that are from, like you said, that are deceased, but having an overall arcing meaning, and that's what these flashbacks are really about. And they kind of go into a discussion about time machines. You know, if we have all this money, you know, we could use it to build a time machine. What would you want to change? You know, and he asked Mike this. Jimmy.
Wait, I want to point out to you. I don't know if you remember this, but in that opening sequence at the beginning of this final season, when they're clearing out Saul's mansion.
Yes.
The book, The Time Machine, was one of the things that was in there.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Well, that's important for later on.
Later in the episode, or later in the season, it was on his nightstand also. So, just pointing out, kind of like I said at the beginning here, that each episode, as the story progresses and more is revealed to us, we gain more meaning from the prior episodes. Like, we realize Jimmy was reading his book already. He's thinking about the idea of like, would he go back in time and change? You know,
I did not even know that was something that was placed prior, because you don't think about it, obviously. Well, you initially don't think about it. Obviously, rewatchability, you're like, wait a second. That's awesome. Yeah. A great attention to detail that makes a lot of sense. Because, you know, if you watch a show, if you read a book, play a video game, those things will be on your mind. Makes sense why this is on his mind. But so Jimmy, you know, is asked Mike if you could change something, what would it be? And I love how Mike is so precise. Like, he's like, this date, like he's like December 8th, 2001. Wait a second, actually no, March 7th, 1984. That's when I accepted my first bribe. Basically, you know, he feels like his life had went a completely different way than he was expecting because he did this one little act.
Right. I think that he knows those exact dates because he has already reflected on his past. He's
Yes,
already realized the mistakes. Saul's been avoiding it, right? He is
it's
not. He's
exactly.
specifically avoiding, looking back on the mistakes of his life and what he should have done. Mike is not. Mike's faced it. He didn't necessarily make a change for the better. Like he decided to
Yeah,
go ahead with the life of a criminal and a murderer.
yeah.
But the fact is, he has reflected on his past.
Yes.
And what do you think that first date that he
I
changed
was
his mind
actually
on
about
was?
to ask that, and
I think
my
I
only
know what it
guess
is, but
is it has something to do with the son.
yeah,
Um,
there was a moment when he uh, had a there's a moment when his daughter was asking him about a conversation that he had had. He's like,
mm,
or she had overheard a heated conversation with her husband,
yes,
Mike's son,
yes.
and she was trying to figure out what it was, what that conversation was, who it was with, and she started to piece together that it was with Mike, and she asked him about it, and at first he, was like, "What are you talking about? It wasn't me," but eventually breaks down and explains to her
Mm,
that, his son, the background story. Mike was in a whatever department of the police, whatever
police
his group
department.
or
Yeah.
yeah, was just full of corruption, and his son was getting drawn into it, and called him to ask for advice. And Mike said, just go along with it. Just take the bribe. And at first that kind of upset and disappointed his son, but Mike admits to him was like, I did it too. Like it's just
Mhm.
how things are. Go
Yep.
along with it. And so his son did go along with it, but because he had been resistant at first, it made the other corrupt cops suspicious of him, and they ended up killing him. And Mike blames himself for that. He feels like, it's my fault. I'm the one that pushed him into getting up with this corruption. I'm the one
Mm-hmm.
that made him be disappointed in me. I should have stood up for him. I should have turned myself in. Whatever it is, he probably remembers the date of that phone call. He probably remembers it
Yep.
very clearly. It's
Yeah.
probably right before his son died. He probably thinks of it as a big mistake of his life. But I think that in the end, when he's talking to Saul, he realizes like, wait a minute. I shouldn't have become a cop in the first place. That was the real mistake that led to
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So.
No, it makes complete sense. Also, like how Mike points out, he's like, when I changed this day, like the later day or the 1984 day, he's like, I would want to jump 10 years into the future to check up on people. He always, like, from Breaking Bad and all that, he cares about his employees, his friends, or, well, at least he feels obligated ish.
There's a specific one or two people he wants to check up on.
My guess is the wife, the daughter, and all that. Maybe his son.
Yeah, his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter Kaylee.
Yeah.
If he went back in time and changed what he did, his son might still be alive. So maybe he means them.
Yeah.
He specifically in that moment is thinking about wanting to make sure his granddaughter is okay.
Because that's like his overall goal. Like the whole reason he does any of this is to protect them.
Not the whole reason.
Well, that's true because he has like
reason.
Yeah. I consider like a goal of his, like um, but anyways, of course, Mike is like, what would you change? And I had to research this a little bit, but Saul was like, I would go to like 1965, which is a far date. I was like, and he brought up a man named Warren Buffett. And he would like
Warren Buffett is the richest, or has been one of the richest men in the world for a long time.
Yes, I didn't know this. I had, like I said, I had to research this. I was like, what the heck is Berkshire? But yeah, it's just this guy. Like right now, I think he's worth like $98 billion or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like ungodly amounts of money.
In the past generation or so, some of the tech people like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or whoever finally started to surpass Warren Buffett. But like for generations, he's been one of the wealthiest people in the world, basically for making wise investments.
Exactly.
For, anticipating what culture and society we're going to need and what businesses we're working on that and investing in those businesses. And yeah, he's well respected.
Yes.
Business person, investor, entrepreneur, or whatever. Yeah. And so if you could go back, it's kind of like now we might go back and wish we invested in Apple or Amazon. You know what I mean? That's kind of what Jimmy's saying. He wished he'd gone back and invested in whatever Warren Buffett was doing.
Exactly. Which obviously that's the smart move, I guess. Like like people are like, I would have got that one lottery ticket. He thinks bigger than that. Jimmy's like, invest in the wealthiest person in the world. Like, why not? Like, if you're gonna make money, might as well make all the money, or as much as you possibly can. But of course, Mike is like, is that all you care about? Money? He's like, you don't want to change anything personal, basically. Like there's not like a single thing you regret. And he doesn't answer that, which we're gonna jump to the Walter scene in just a moment. But I don't know if you have anything else with the Mike stuff.
Well, we know what the answer is, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And, I feel so good about myself for reading what they were doing here. I said before this episode that I thought that the primary unresolved conflict was Jimmy's role in Chuck's death.
Yep.
And that and I even going back when we were thinking about that phone call with Kim, that I was pretty sure on some level she was calling him out, before we heard it.
Yeah.
Saw one side until he got mad. I was thinking about an earlier season when Jimmy had lost his license, was trying to get it back, and the board didn't approve him. And Kim was like, "Well, it's because you didn't express any remorse for Chuck." And he's like, "Why would I? What's Chuck have to do with this?" Like, he just wasn't accepting it or thinking about it. Even when Kim, the person who understands him and loves him, is trying to bring it out, he just got mad at her. And that's what I thought he got mad at her again in that phone call. And it's what made me kind of realize that's the thing. That's, I think, the underlying defining characteristic of Saul. Is that he's just not accepting or dealing with that, and Saul's character has been driving almost everything that's happening. Even in Breaking Bad, it's been revealed that he was kind of behind Walter White, and he was in this state of like
denial.
Abandoned. He was, because of his denial, he was abandoning his morality. He was pushing to prove himself, like all these different things he was doing. All boiled down to the fact that he has this inner guilt over how he contributed to his brother's death. And I felt like that's what this finale was going to be about. And right off the bat, they start off by demonstrating with this flashback that he's not dealing with it,
So we jump, to the next flashback, which is Walter White. And we called this, by the way, or, I remember you pointed out, because you were like, how are they going to bring Walter into this? The only thing that makes sense would be in between the vacuum, where they get vacuumed up, but then they're sitting together for a little bit, and then they, separate.
It was kind of right and kind of wrong, because one of the reasons I thought it was going to be that moment or that time period, because I actually thought it was going to be before that, because I thought, like we talked about, the little misleading quote unquote trailer that we got at the beginning was Jimmy muttering like, over vacuum 600 max, whatever. He's like talking about those vacuum parts that you make the call to the guy to make you disappear. So I was thinking he was trying to memorize that so that he could tell it to Walt. Does that make sense? That's what I thought the scene was going to be. So we're still in that right range of him getting vacuumed, but it wasn't quite the moment, or that line was in the show, but not where I thought it was going to be. But anyway, I do feel proud for how many things I correctly predicted about how this was going to go, but I can't take complete credit for this particular one.
But this scene was about Walter's interpretation of this answer, of if you had a time machine, what would you change? Now they're stuck in I guess a room, waiting to get waiting for, I can't remember his name, the guy who vacuums, to send them off to the spot that they're going to go to.
It was the guy's name.
What's up?
It was the guy's name.
Oh, guy's name, yeah.
Vacuum cleaner guy, yeah.
And Walter's just like, so one thing about Walter, and this was shown in Breaking Bad, is when he's fixated on something, or almost like when he's like trying to what's the word, ignore something. It's not ignore the right term, but he always like tries to keep his mind going. So like he'll fix stuff, and he's like fixing a thermostat, like, for one, he is a scientist, that he if he could fix it, he'll go and fix it. But I feel like sometimes he like gets fixated on stuff, to ignore his problems. But anyway, so he's trying to fix the thermostat, and you know, Saul or Jimmy's like, if you had a time machine, what would you do? And of course, like Walter's like, there's no such thing as a time machine. That's a ridiculous question. Why are we even talking about this? Oh, you're talking about guilt. Well, if you're talking about guilt, then just ask me, what am I, what are my regrets, basically? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Regrets. Yeah.
It's similar, but yeah.
So it's a funny, like, dialogue, scene, just because, like Walter's just going off on the meaning of a time machine, but it comes down to regrets. And Walter's, regret was, which we kind of knew, was his relationship with his past friends, co-workers, because he was building this company with them, and he finally leaves because he just felt like it wasn't going anywhere, and they took that idea and you could argue stole it from him,
Never really got the full details of what happened, and everything we did get came from Walter, and he's a biased source.
Exactly.
It's hard to really trust what he's saying. So, I guess that he did something to screw it up. Probably had an affair, because it was a couple that they went into business with, and my guess is he had an affair with the wife, and that caused some falling out, and so he left.
Yeah.
But in his mind, they screwed him over and pushed him out. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to admit the truth of it to himself,
absolutely.
much less to Jimmy. So,
but obviously that's
one way or the other. Yeah.
That's his biggest regret, because if he had, because he likes, he's prideful. He wants to prove that, yeah, I did this. That's why I felt like he was so fixated on the drug cartel, because he made this blue, what's it called, blue drug. I should know this name, but anyways, meth. Yeah. That was him who did it, and no one could do it better than me. And everyone will know this. I feel like he has like this egotistical, like really big egotistic. Actually, this is why I don't like him personally, but doesn't mean he's a bad character. Obviously,
he's a bad person. He might be an interesting character, but he's a bad person. And I think they're also kind of reinforcing this parallel that they made before, that Jimmy and Walter are similar in a lot of ways. That they both have this sort of ego, this need to prove themselves, or maybe to be more less mean about it, maybe to be validated, right? For whatever reason, they feel like they need to be validated. And Walt was trying to do it by being the meth cook and the best, drug lord or whatever he could. Jimmy was trying to be the best lawyer, and both of them sort of took some amount of pride in outwitting other people. And but even though they have these very similarities, and they kind of reveal to us that Walt is thinking of himself as being the one that made all this drug stuff happen, we're kind of realizing Jimmy made it. Walt without Jimmy probably just would have gotten killed or caught. Jimmy kind of made it happen as much as Walt, and it's also a point of pride for Jimmy, at least at this moment.
Yeah.
But Walt at least is facing his past, and he does. If you remember, eventually he calls Skyler. And
you're talking about like the final season of Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah. Well, it might have been one of the last couple episodes, and he says, you got to understand, Skyler, everything I did, and she cuts him off because he has said over and over again. She's like, if I hear you say one more time that you did this for the family, and he's like, no, I did it for myself.
Yep.
I did it because it made me feel good, because I was good at it. So he did. He was at that moment with Jimmy as he's about to be vacuumed away, on some level facing his past, he more so than Jimmy at least, and by the end he really did take responsibility for it. Now, I still don't think it makes it okay.
No.
I'm not sure it's fair to say he redeemed himself, but on at least a psychological level, he was realizing it and telling the one person he loved, Skyler, about it. We see all this with Jimmy too, right? So
yes. So Walter asks, this is the same question back to Jimmy. What are your regrets? And he talks about the story where he slipped on ice at like some Marshall Field. I assume Marshall Field's like a baseball stadium or something, or an ice stadium, or I'm not quite sure.
I think it's a football field.
Oh, football, yeah, okay.
Chicago, but yeah.
But this is not in that he slipped outside of the place and hurt his leg, and he sued them, and that helped him pay to get his bar, basically. Um,
And that's why it's called Slippin' Jimmy. He
yes,
would
I cut that.
slip on purpose and pretend to be hurt. And then, whoever was in charge of that place, just to avoid legal trouble, would just say, "Give me $500 or whatever."
Yeah.
This time he actually hurt himself. He slipped so hard. And by the way, that's another thing that several times through the show he has mentioned his bad knee. When they had him with a bag in his head by the grave.
Oh,
When I
yeah,
stand
yeah,
up,
yeah,
I got
yeah,
a bad
yeah.
knee. It's another little detail that came into play, if you will.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was like 22, so he wasn't like super young, but he was young. And it's funny that what Walter says. He's like, you're always like this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like basically we're all born and we can't change ourselves almost. They also brought
Kind
up
of like what Chuck said too, and I think
yes.
that's part of the point of this episode was to prove them both wrong.
Yes, I actually completely agree. Um They also brought up one other thing. What was it? Let's see. Oh, a minor thing, but it was really funny. I thought when Walter's talking about how he got screwed over by his friends, and Walter or Jimmy, I'm sorry, Jimmy was like, is it still around? Is it successful? Why didn't you tell me? I could have, we could have done something about this. And Walter's like, you're the last person I would tell. I was just.
Yeah.
It's funny.
He's still looking for an angle to profit off someone
exactly
else's legal error. Walt's like, it wouldn't have gone to you anyway.
but yeah, that's pretty much that flashback. I don't know if you have any more things to say about Walter, and then we're gonna jump to Chuck, which that's our final flashback with these older characters. And this one was more. What's the word? Like they don't talk about time machine, not exactly at least. But Jimmy walks into Chuck's house. I'm trying to think of what time period is this. Is this before the show? I actually wondered about this. I don't.
This is
Could be season 1-ish area.
Yeah, it's at least season 1. I think it might even be season. Ooh, I guess it can't be past season 3. But it's in that time period.
Yeah, but they're just talking like Jimmy's like bringing Chuck food, and they talk about. I thought they talk about his schooling. That's why I didn't know if it was before.
Definitely had clients. Chuck suggested that he talk to him about his clients.
Yeah.
Jimmy, Chuck told Jimmy I could get someone from HHM to help me with this. So it's in that time period.
Okay.
I don't remember them talking about schooling, but if they did, it would have been something from the past or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But you just get to see the relationship that Jimmy does care about taking care of his brother. He's like giving him food. He doesn't have to pay him back. He is doing this because I feel like he does care about his brother, which we knew. Like their relationship is really complicated, but deep down, Jimmy does want to make sure his brother is taken care of.
I think that's something that wasn't really in question. I think that was clear throughout the show.
Yeah.
I think that this showed more that Chuck really cared about Jimmy. I think that is something that maybe was to know for sure given with the rest of the show, but given this, it's clarified that Chuck really did care about Jimmy.
Yeah. I know, like when they leave, this is something I didn't even notice the first time, that Chuck had on his counter H.G. Wells' The Time Machine book.
Book, yeah.
Which, and the fact that you say that, Jimmy basically took that book and like continued, and read it, or, I don't know. I thought that's a really neat thing that it was originally from Chuck. Now
Chuck might have also been thinking about the regrets of his life and how he treated Jimmy.
Yeah. Do you have more to say about like this Chuck scene?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was pretty like just straightforward. But those are pretty much all the flashbacks. We're gonna dive into the present because there's a lot. But it was nice for one to see all these actors come back. Some of them that I wasn't expecting. Makes complete sense, but wasn't expecting. But they start the actual show like after the intro flashback. The title screen, they show. I couldn't figure out what this was at first. So there's something that flashes really fast, and it is the dough machine or whatever that machine is in jail. A neat little thing, detail that
It's very similar to the one that was at Cinnabon.
Yep. I actually thought it was a Cinnabon, but it's the jail one. But we continue with like Gene. This is right after Marianne calls him, calls the cops, and Gene just takes off, and we get to see him get pursued by the cops. He goes back home, gets his money, gets his jewels, and gets the vacuum card, and he's his goal is to get vacuumed up again, which you kind of said this too. You're like, he's probably going to try to do it, but it's not going to succeed this time. And that's what happens. He's like running around town, hiding in dumpsters, and he gets caught. Actually, he kind of gets caught because he was trying to open up the phone, the disposable phone case.
Phone to make the call.
Like he's being.
I think that two things about this. You say he's running around town. He barely got 2 blocks away.
That's true. That is true. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right.
This whole sequence was only, I don't even think it was 10 minutes into the show that he gets caught. And I appreciate that. I think I said something I think I said beforehand, is that this isn't about a big chase scene and a gunfight. This show is a drama about Jimmy's moral flaws, and I don't think they're going to resolve this with some kind of action sequence. And I'm glad that they didn't. That, we got a little bit of suspense in those first few minutes. It also, the way they handled this, it added to another thing that I felt like was Jimmy he's trying to get caught. Like, I don't think that he's going to, like, just walk into a police station and say, I surrender, right?
That's true.
He's given up. Does that make sense? He kind of knows he's eventually going to get caught anyway, and so he's just pushing the limits. He might not have got caught in that moment at the dumpster if he was quiet. If he just got in there and shut up and just waited.
Exactly.
But instead, he's mumbling out loud. He's shuffling around for the diamonds that he dropped. He's tearing open his plastic. He knows there's a cop right there. He saw him. He knows they're everywhere looking for him. He's just asking to get caught.
And it's not really, like, then it goes back to when he was like confronting Marianne. He could have just took the thing, the little collar that she had.
For making that call, right. It didn't kill her. I don't think he was ever going to kill her.
No.
But he didn't have to let her make the call either.
Exactly.
I think he did because he knows. He's accepted it, and he's just, it's probably some internal struggle. Quite, I don't know if he's actively deciding, I want to get caught, so I will let her make this phone call. I don't know if it's as simple as that, but on some level, I feel like subconsciously he's doing things that are going to let him get caught. From breaking into the guy's house to letting her make that phone call to fumbling around the dumpster. We know he has the ability to be more shrewd than this, and he's not. So.
He's at the cop station or the police station. It's funny that you see like the cops surrounding a laptop and they're listening to Better Call Saul trailer, I guess, or promotion that he does. And it's I probably, if I was a cop, I'd probably want to listen to that too because it's pretty funny. But
some of it, they're trying to make sure they've really got the right person.
That's right? Probably true. Yeah,
I can imagine them. Out of all those cops, 1 or 2 like are familiar with the story or know who he is or saw the wanted poster. And 1 or 2 of them are like, "Who's this guy? That's him? What do you mean? Let me show you on the YouTubes." Oh, him? Okay, sure. Well, I guess call the FBI. I can see the whole process they all went through, realizing what an exciting moment they were part of.
So this is a thing that I was not expecting. I thought this was a really cool detail. He gets a phone call. Who do you expect him to call? I thought he was just going to call some type of lawyer or something. He calls his work. And I thought that felt, to me, that made me, I like Saul anyways, but that made me respect him more. Because he just screwed somebody over. He knows it's going to be complicated at work. He does care about his employees, probably to a degree. And he goes and checks up on them. And he really didn't have to do that. Now, maybe this is like part of like making himself look good, I guess you could argue. But I felt he was genuine personally. I could be wrong. It's hard to tell with Jimmy sometimes.
I thought about that scene a lot too. I thought it was really interesting. There's a lot of different things it could be. It could be more than one thing. But one is, might still just have this sort of momentum of being Gene. He's just used to it. He still feels like he's got to go back to work tomorrow. And on some level, he might still be in denial. They arrested me, but they'll let me go. They won't know who I really am. Or, I'll talk him out of it. Or, he might in his mind. But it's still weird to think, even if that was the case, he's gonna go back to Cinnabon, huh? You know, like
Exactly.
it's but also I think, like you said, I feel like he probably had some sort of relationship with the people that he worked with. He seemed to know their names. They seemed
Mhm.
to have a respect for him and him for them. He seemed like he was a good boss, a good coworker, or whatever.
Yeah,
I do think it adds a layer of appreciation, respect, goodness, whatever you want to call. I mean,
exactly.
in no way does him being a good manager at his cover job make up for the conspiracy to commit
No,
murder that he's guilty of, or
no,
whatever. You
no.
know, the personality, all the identity thefts that he went through, and all the other things. It doesn't exactly redeem him, but it is just a reminder of a piece of his core self,
Yep,
right? And I think
exactly.
that's another part of what they're trying to do in his final episode is to show us that he's made a lot of terrible decisions, and he deserves to be punished for them. But at his core, he's not actually an evil person. He has
Correct.
all these good slices to him, you know.
Yes. Um. So he's like in the cell, the next scene, or waiting cell, I guess you could call it. And like he's like muttering to himself, you know, what were you thinking? And how did you? This is how they catch you or get you. You know, like he's like muttering a couple things, and he punches the door, hurts himself. But then he sees on the wall, "My lawyer will ream you or ream your ass." And it's like I don't know if that's what made it click. I assume it made it click, but he's like, "I'm gonna call William Oakley," which completely makes sense. I should have like realized that he may have called him because they kind of foreshadowed that in the last episode. Wait, it was last episode, the episode part when they showed him on the billboard, basically.
Yeah. We saw that Bill Oakley went from being a prosecuting attorney to a defending attorney,
Yeah.
and he had a private practice, not public. Because I think as a public servant, there would have been a conflict of interest. He had too much association with Saul already, and
Okay,
the
that makes
government
sense.
wouldn't have allowed him to represent him. But as a public defendant, it lines up. But I think, by the way, more than just the idea to call Bill popped in his head there. I think the idea popped in his mind to revert to Saul Goodman himself, to become a lawyer. He's like, wait,
Yes, that's a good
I'm a
point.
lawyer. I will handle this. He represented himself, which is pretty unusual in general, much
Yeah,
less for a
yeah. I
big
forget that
case
you could
like
do
this.
that. You know, like
Yeah.
because you could hire a lawyer and you could not be a lawyer yourself. But if you feel like you could deal with this, you could technically do that. So I completely forgot that you could do that.
Yeah. And it's also sort of like this is his world. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Like,
it is.
he
Yes.
might not know how to behave as Gene or working for Cinnabons. He might not know how to behave as a prisoner, but he knows how to behave as a lawyer. He knows the system and the rules and how to pitch it to the jury and how to handle the opposing counsel. I think he needed Bill almost just like as an assistant.
Yes.
Bill's just someone that will be able to like look things up and make phone calls and like manage some technical details. But I think he had a plan of how to handle the case in general that I don't know if Bill would have come up with on his own.
No, you're right. So this is another thing I like about the show. So when I saw the William Oakley's bulletin board on like the bench, I laughed. I thought it was funny, and I thought it was almost a throwaway. And I don't know why I thought it was a throwaway because I should have known they were going to do that. But in my mind, I thought because William's kind of he's not stupid, but he is nothing like Saul. They almost make Saul look what is the word inferior or much better than William, and William's kind of like a doofus almost. Like I said, he's not, but kind of. That's why I thought it was funny. I was
definitely a little bit more bumbling, just kind of barely trying to make it through his days. Where Saul's on top of his game.
Yes. So it was just funny to me when I saw the bulletin board or poster, or whatever you want to call it. But I should have known they were going to use him. And that's just great ways of using things, your resource, writing resources. Anyways, so he calls him, and it's a funny conversation because like William's like, "Me represent you." That's funny. He's also shocked that Saul even called him. But he that he goes and does it, because they do have like some chemistry or chemistry, chemistry, but like a relationship.
Rapport,
yeah.
Also, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was pretty much done, but yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, the the way Saul was pitching this to Bill is true, that this could make him a famous lawyer, right?
Yes.
Representing, being the lawyer in a big, high-profile case like this, it makes him more likely to get future jobs. It's
Yep.
like a notch in his belt. He's more likely to get more clients or get hired by some other firm that pays more money, or maybe even like eventually become a judge or whatever else.
Yeah,
So it's a big opportunity for Bill to be part of this.
that's true. Yes. Um. So of course Bill goes and represents him. And the next thing has Saul in like cuffs and he's walking down a hallway in a police station. And obviously this was like a surprise to me. You see Marie, in the corner of his eye, like in a room or something like that. And I was like, oh wow, they actually brought Marie back. Like it's neat that they got the actress, but like, and it also makes sense. But like, I just didn't think about it. Going into the episode, how many characters they were going to bring from the past back. And of course, Marie's like upset because her husband's dead, her husband's partner's dead, and she just wants justice. And
she doesn't just want justice; she wants attention also.
That's a good point. I never thought about
that. Kind of part of her character.
Yeah, I forget about that. You're right.
This is just a good excuse for her to get everyone to feel bad for her, someone to put her anger onto. I don't know. She might even get to write a book for her experiences mixed up in all this. One way or the other, not to say that she isn't genuinely torn up about her husband being dead, but I think there's a little bit of like a show she's putting on,
Yeah, that makes sense, which is funny because Saul does the same thing. He puts on a show.
Yeah.
But so they're in this like, I guess an interrogation room. It's not really an interrogation room, but it's I don't know what to call this room because it's not a jury. It's not like a plea bargaining. I forgot the term. I don't know what this is exactly, like what the term is that they use, but basically they're trying to discuss what they're going to do with Saul or Jimmy.
Whatever the room was, it was a conference room. It was probably at the police station, but this is a shoot, I forgot the phrase, but there's a phrase where they're trying to decide what they're going to charge him with, and this is a chance for him to try to make a deal, or et cetera, et cetera. Especially in a big case where there's lots of crimes and people involved, it's going to take some planning and orchestration. They're not just going to walk into court and say, all right, this guy committed a crime, judge. They're going to have the list of crimes, their proof for each thing, witnesses, and part of it is also, there's usually two parts to a trial, and the second part is usually being taken into account for during the first part, which is sentencing. There's like the actual, are they guilty? Then if they are guilty, how long are they going to jail?
Yeah.
So, and that's what Saul's trying to point out in this is like, look, you might not even find me guilty. If you try to throw the book at me and say I'm guilty of all these crimes, I only have to convince one person on a jury that, hey, Walt made me do it. I'm a victim here, And if I do, then I'm found not guilty and I don't go to jail at all.
Yep.
Or I can save you the trouble calling your witnesses. I can save the trial, all the costs of the lawyers, all the witnesses, and you can make sure I go to jail just for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I'm going to remove the risk of me getting off altogether for the guarantee to put me in jail. And usually in this scenario, especially when they started off with like 200 years, they were going to say,
I was going to say, this is a lot of years. Crimes, like they're like lifetime plus 160 or something ridiculous. And you're like, which I find funny when they're like, this guy's going to be in jail for 300 years. And you're like, I'm at, really? But,
one thing a huge sentence thing like that does is that even though they know they're not going to be in jail for 300 years, but it makes it harder to get parole or get released early or something like that. It makes sure you really stay for your whole life. And that's what usually in a scenario like this, even whatever kind of like negotiating they might have had, or you're going to negotiate it down from 250 years to 150 years. Okay, fine, but you're still going to jail for life. So the fact that Saul gets it down to 7, you saw the frustration with the other lawyers over this whole thing too,
and Marie. Also, when he pitches this, I believed him. Like, I mean, obviously, I know he was telling a lie, but like, he had points. Like, he brought up like real. I mean, he's a lawyer. He knows how to work the system, and I should have known this going into it that this could have happened and this would have happened. That like he would know how to play the system to reduce his sentence. Um, but like when he talks about like, Walter putting it back, like that was true, that, and he almost was killed, or at least he thought he was going to be killed. And he was a victim of Walter, and he wasn't, obviously. He was, but he wasn't. Half truth. His story can be like argued, and I can see a juror like, I felt bad for him. He got screwed over, and the fact that he's like, yeah, Walter's dead, but Jesse's still out there, which we know that Jesse's not going to kill him, but they don't, like
the jury doesn't.
Exactly.
Like a jury might generally understand his fear, and like a lot of the crimes that we know he committed are hard to prove.
Yep.
And, not all of them, but a lot of them would be hard to prove, and even the ones you can prove, it's still hard to prove that he did it without being coerced into it. And a lot of times, even if you commit a crime, if someone forces you in one way or the other to commit a crime, a lot of times you might still be found guilty of a lesser version of that crime or get the minimum sentence for that crime. Sometimes found not guilty at all, right?
Yep.
In fact, that was it's a little bit of a tangent, but way earlier, Suzanne Erickson, the assistant district attorney, confronted Kim saying, hey, we kind of get that Saul might have got caught up in something over his head. That this Lalo Salamanca guy might have kind of pushed him in to this scenario.
Yep.
And if we can demonstrate that in court, he won't be guilty of the crimes. If we can show that he only did it because he was afraid for his life, then he won't be as guilty of the same crimes. And Kim was like, Saul's not a rat or whatever. Like she wasn't partly found because Kim didn't want to give up the scam on Howard. That's part of why she ended up leaving. She realized that was just one more bad thing that she did, that she probably should have taken that deal with with Erickson, Suzanne Erickson. But her greed or selfishness or whatever you want to call it kept her from doing it, and she felt bad and made her realize she had to stop. Anyway, point is that I think that's part of what's happening with this negotiation here is anything that he can demonstrate he only did because he was afraid of his life, he's getting him to drop that and make it a lesser crime.
Yeah.
Or get the minimum sentencing for it or whatever else. And that's how he's getting it down so low.
And I also like, he's like, I'm going to be in jail for like 7 years, but I'm going to have it my way. I want you to get me into this prison. Like he says, like a certain prison, because and he references another prison. He's saying, I don't want to go to that prison because I've heard bad things about it. It's like ADX.
He's seen bad things about it. He went visited a client there, and it was really bad. I'm not 100% sure, by the way. But I'm pretty sure at one point they called it the Alcatraz of the Rockies.
Huh?
That's a real prison that's in Colorado. There's like a maximum security prison in Colorado that has a lot of like famous criminals from, I don't know, like.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. Think of a famous crinal.
Yeah. No, it reminds me of, this is a Batman reference.
Unabomber, that's one. Sorry.
Batman has Arkham Asylum or something like that. Yeah. Similar name almost. Who has the worst villains in the Batman. But anyways, that's interesting that there's a real prison like that. Anyways, obviously Saul knows what he's doing. He knows how to work the system, and he does it. He adds, he's like, I want some ice cream. That was just funny. He's like, I have some dirt that I could use to get this ice cream. And he brings up Howard. But of course, Kim already told him about Howard. So, and he's shocked, obviously, because he didn't know that his wife, ex-wife, Kim, confessed to this. And he was so sure of himself up until this point. And you realize that, he's like, oh no, like he's concerned. He doesn't know well, for one, that threw his plans off, but also I feel like he is worried about Kim's fate, To
be fair, it didn't throw his plans off very much, right?
No, he didn't. He just didn't get the ice cream.
Negotiated 200 plus years of jail down to 7 years of jail. And got it in a cush prison instead of a maximum security prison. Like, he's already done about as good as you can imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
and he's still pushing for the ice cream. Like, I don't think that he was really that upset about
No,
not
he
getting the
was.
ice
No, I
cream.
think he was
It
more
was
upset
more
about
about like,
Kim.
wait a minute, Kim confessed?
That's what I meant. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was blowing his mind.
Yeah.
That was blowing his mind.
And he confronts, his lawyer William about this on the plane, and he's like, "I got more dirt. You need to have me go back to to tell the real story, basically." So we get the flip side.
He wants to further negotiate.
Yes.
He wants to
Yes,
give
that's
him
it.
more information and do more negotiating.
And of course,
At
I knew
first,
in my
this moment, I thought like, oh no, is he gonna turn on Kim? Is he gonna throw her under the bus? Like, I couldn't believe it because I just feel like that's so against everything they built up.
yes,
But I couldn't think of what else it would be.
I
I was a
actually
little
thought
perplexed at this
it
moment.
was him wanting to see her and him wanting to be there for her to see him change. I thought that in my head. Well, make that. I hope that because it was a little. I mean, he was cold on how he delivered it, so it felt like he could backstab her. But I was like, "There's no way." From how they built up
What
everything.
else could he do?
Yeah.
It makes sense what he did.
Yeah.
It's like almost everything in the show. Like if I just paused and thought about it for an hour instead of just going to the next scene,
Yeah.
it might have clicked in my head.
Yeah. But we get the flip side. We get Kim's side, and we see Kim, back at her in Florida, working at this sprinkler place, having lunch with her friend or her coworkers. And then like something clicks and she's like, I want to go home early. And she goes to a law firm or it's like a free lawyer advice place. But she wants to volunteer there. And I honestly felt like really happy because I know this is where she's happy. This is what she was meant to be, and she doesn't care about the money. She just wants to help people, So it was nice to see her start diving back into this field, this part of her.
And not just this legal field where she gets to help people, but specifically that she's kind of taking charge of her life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the last time we saw her, she couldn't even decide on a mayonnaise or an ice cream flavor.
Yes.
She just, okay, whatever. She was going along with what everyone else said. She didn't have any decisions or agency. But now she's kind of like standing up straight, going to this job, picking up the phone, she's like kind of like shifted the gears of her life back to the person that she used to be.
I also like the person that she goes into, like the person that works at the lawyer place or the law firm, or I'm not quite sure what this, the I think it's like an aide
service.
Yeah. But they showed that this person, like, this job could suck to a lot of people, and you really do it if you really care, and this person cared. And I thought that was important to show that,
Kim does too. That she's put herself in a tough position because she cares. She's not looking for a cush, easy situation.
She gets a call from Suzanne, talking about how Jimmy's going to throw her under the bus, probably, And Suzanne, by the way, doesn't have to do this. She does this out of, I don't want to say kindness. I'm trying to think of the word for it, but respect. Yeah.
Out of respect for Kim. Yeah.
Especially since Tim turned herself in when she didn't have to, like a month or so ago. And she's probably always respected to a degree Kim. I mean, in the past, even. I mean, like you said, Suzanne confronted Kim earlier on, she just knows how, Suzanne.
Kim was mean to her that moment. And,
she was.
She was mean to Kim in the past too. They could still have a level of respect for each other, but I still think they were kind of at odds with each other.
Okay, yeah,
I think if Kim hadn't confessed, then I don't think Suzanne would have called her. I think Suzanne was looking at Kim in a new light because now if Kim hadn't confessed, then Jimmy wouldn't have been doing any of this either way. And it's weird to think about what would happen if you had a time machine, but given it's played out the way that it is, it made sense that she called her.
But the next scene, like probably the most important scene of the episode, Jimmy's in a courtroom, with the judge, and they're wanting, and for one, like the judge is like super confused on how the heck did Jimmy or Saul get his life, like he has all these crimes. How did he get 7 years? Like, it's just like, it baffles her, and she asked the not DEA, but his name is George, but he's like the man who's in charge of the investigation, I guess.
Attorney.
Yeah. And he starts like trying to explain it, but then Jimmy's like, hold on, let me explain it. And he gets on the stand and tells the same spill he did prior. When he was
for the same.
Yeah. But then he changes up something when he's so originally he was a victim. It was all Walter's fault, and he said, I was scared, but then I wasn't. I what's the word he uses? Basically, he knew what he was doing and he was happy that he did it. And if Walter didn't confront him, Walter would have been in prison or dead. So it was really him who was pulling the strings. And he just confesses a lot of things. Like I said, it's a powerful scene because this is what makes or breaks technically if he's going to be redeemed in the scene. And he talks about Howard, and he gets really choked up on Howard. It's really sad. Like rewatching it, I was like got teary eyed, because he didn't want that to happen to Howard, and he regrets that. How it played out, of Howard dying. And his main goal, is to make sure that Kim is not to blame for this. It's all him. Kim had nothing really to do with this, I felt. Well, I think he's trying to.
That's not quite true. He wasn't necessarily protecting Kim, or trying to take all the blame for it. He lied to them by saying that Kim was more involved than she really was.
Yes.
Get Kim to come. Now that they're going through all this, he's like, okay, all that stuff I said about Kim, that wasn't true.
Yes.
All the stuff that was in her affidavit, that's, he can't protect her from that. It was true, and she admitted to it.
Yeah.
But he just added extra to it just to get their attention, her attention. But he's now saying that wasn't true. I just made that up to get her here.
Yeah. And, obviously he wants her here because he wants to see him admit his mistakes. And it's interesting. So I forget about this, but they bring up a character that I don't even remember who he was, but he says he was actually this may have been prior scene. This may have been when he was in the lawyer, but he says that a DEA who was one of his lawyers or something like that, or a lawyer who worked with him, Daniel Walkenberger. Do you remember who that was? I did research. I had no clue.
That was a lawyer that Mike hired separately from Saul.
Okay.
And that lawyer ended up giving some information to the feds, and that started a whole snowball of things falling apart for Walt and
I see.
And Jimmy and the whole cartel or everything. Yeah. And that guy got violently murdered.
Yeah, he got stabbed 48 times, he says.
I don't think we saw it on screen. We just heard it off screen. It was part of the Mike. I think it was Mike had a safety deposit box. He was using this lawyer to preserve money that he was going to try to give to Kaylee.
That's familiar.
It got caught, and his lawyer told about Mike, and that Mike was trying to get out of town, and that's when Walt ends up killing Mike, and they end up hiring all these the gang members, the Nazi gang that ends up taking over the meth trade that they kidnap Jesse. They hire those guys to kill the people who had worked with Mike in jail, and so they were in a 2-minute span, 9 people in jail got murdered by this gang. Anyway, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's who that guy was.
Okay. Obviously, that's a tangent.
In 2 scenes of the whole show, he probably didn't have more than 5.
That's why I didn't really remember him. But he does bring up.
But it is a reason Saul might legitimately be afraid for his life, right? That's just a demonstration.
Oh, absolutely.
You can see why I'm scared. Look what happened to this guy.
Let's see, sorry. But yeah, he talks about Howard, and he brings up his brother, and you get to really see what he felt about that. His relationship and how he hurt him. Because like I said, they're Chuck and his relationship was very difficult. But he regrets almost screwing him over because his actions of taking away the insurance, taking away his passion, which was law, Chuck's passion, he killed himself, and that's been weighing on Jimmy this whole time, and he hasn't like really confronted himself about that, and now he is, in front of. I feel like mainly, like it's important just to tell himself, but he also wants Kim to be a witness to that, because Kim was a huge part of the aftermath of that, of dealing with his issues or lack of issue, of taking responsibility.
I'm not even sure that Kim was aware that Jimmy got Chuck's malpractice insurance taken away.
Oh, maybe,
I don't know
yeah.
if she even knew that. And certainly nothing with Chuck had anything to do with what he was being brought in for right here.
Oh, absolutely.
You remember? So I think it was Bill. Was like, that's not even a crime.
Yes, I thought that was really funny. Yeah, that.
No, it was. Like
yeah,
Jimmy,
yeah. He's like, in my mind, it was, and then at the end, like before he sits down, because I think like the judge says, you can't say anything else, Saul or something. He's like, my name is not Saul, it's Jimmy McGill. Like he takes on, like he's proud of finally taking on that name, because if you think about it, from the beginning to this point, he's been, Jimmy, Saul, Gene. He's been all these like identities. Victor, yeah. But in the end, and deep down, he's really Jimmy.
Even,
yeah, slipping Jimmy, yeah. And he's always almost been ashamed of that name, I always thought that, he always didn't. I mean, obviously he liked his brother, but like deep down he hated his brother or something like that. But no, he loved his brother, and he regrets his brother's ending how he did, Anyway, I don't know if you have anything else to say about this scene or tangents about him and his brother.
I will say one thing. I think that it was subtle. I might even be reading too much into it, but I feel like there's so much subtlety in this show that I'm probably not. I think they did it on purpose. Watch real close as Jimmy is like making these different confessions. Keeps looking back at Kim to see her reaction.
Yes, I know.
Pretty much is pretty stoned the whole way until he finally talks about Chuck. And man, it was so subtle. It was like Lena Headey playing Cersei subtle.
Yes.
We're just I can't pause. I was gonna try to do it with my face. I can't possibly do it. But just watch that scene again and watch her face just sort of like go from like, if I exaggerate it, she looks kind of like this, like, okay, is that it? Is that all you got?
Yep.
This better be good. But then she suddenly goes like, oh, he really is,
Yes.
I'm
yes.
extremely exaggerating.
I know what you mean.
But it's a very subtle, nuanced shift in her expression that I think showed that she got it, that she finally understood that he really was. It wasn't some game or some trick, that he really was remorseful.
Yes.
He really was putting it all on the line, and she really did appreciate it, and he was able to see that. And I think that they should win Best Actor and Actress just for that 5-second moment.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it for 50 minutes a week for 6 seasons. So
because like the last scene or the last shot of that scene was Jimmy looking back, and he like does this half smirk or smile, basically, yes, I'm happy I finally told the truth. I let that off of my, that weight off of me, and she acknowledged it, and she was proud of him. I took it as she was proud of him, because she said that you need to turn yourself in, you need to basically deal with your issues, whatever they are, and
he had pretty much lost everything else at this point too. It's not just another angle to consider, because it is kind of extreme for him to go from 7 years in jail to 80 years in jail. That's the rest of his life, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even with good behavior, it gets reduced to 40. He's 50-something years old. He's going to be in jail till he's 90. Like, there's no real way out of this. I mean, maybe eventually he works the system and he knows the deal and he's good behavior or whatever else, and he's only in jail for
20 years?
Even that seems extreme, to get the 80 down to 20.
Yeah.
And he'll still be in the 70s. Like, he's pretty much giving up the rest of his life.
Yes.
And so it has to be really important to him to some combination of, face the consequences. Like, he's really decided to be a good person and that he deserves this punishment. And that's one piece of it, and that he wants Kim to know it. It's important
Yes.
for him to redeem himself from Kim's eyes, because there is no one else. That maybe another argument why he is doing this is because it's kind of practical. Like, what else is he gonna do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's say he did get out of jail in 7 years. Go back to work at Cinnabon. There's no way he can be a lawyer. There's no way he's getting any bars passing him again. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? He
Yep.
might even recognize in himself, especially if he doesn't actually redeem himself, that he'll keep being a bad person. He'll just go back in the world and hurt more people like he always has been.
Yep.
He might feel like for the world's protection, he needs to be in jail. He's going to end up doing more bad stuff. And he may have not have actively thought about this, but he might end up doing more good in jail too, where he's kind of forced to stay in check, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably people in jail that need his help, right? He'll probably
Yep.
be able to, give them
Represent
legal
them.
advice
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make sure that that they're not taken advantage of in the jail by lawyers or police or whatever else. And on top of all that, it's clearly a primary motivator for Jimmy to be validated, right?
Yes.
He needs people to understand that he's good, that he's clever, that he's
Yep.
whatever he is. You know what I mean? And it seems like he's gonna get that in jail, right? We get
Yes.
that bus scene, and everyone's like chanting his
Yes.
name.
I was gonna say.
I even wondered if him going to jail might not be enough of a punishment, because he could still be quote unquote successful there and keep his mind busy and da da da. And I think that's one way to make it still be a punishment, is that he has to be there the rest of his life.
Yes.
Even if he's a jailhouse hero, he's still going to be a jailhouse hero for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that keeps the bitter part of the sweet together.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Like this is another thing that I should have realized before the episode, is if he goes to jail, he'll be fine. Like his job was, he could have turned on the cartel. So if he got and got killed, or he helps these people stay out of jail, the people that are in jail are going to know this, and they're not going to go kill him. They're not going to treat him bad, because they know that he was on their side the whole time. In a way, so when they start chanting,
the legitimate part of his career was helping people who got in trouble with the law not go to jail.
Exactly.
And the shady side of his career was helping people who were criminals be more successful.
Yeah.
So from either angle of the other criminals in jail, you're like, yeah, good job, man. Better Call Saul. That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Because you hear about even in jail, people who are who mess with children, they wind up dying because people don't like. It's weird, but they don't like really, really disgusting things that people can do. Murder's one thing, but being a pedophile, that's a completely different thing. We don't want you here. Stuff like that. It's really interesting. But anyways, but Saul, he was just on their side the whole time, so he's fine. So we get a scene. It's kind of funny because you brought this up, that that dough machine looks like the machine he was at Cinnabon, which is almost like a parallel that
both prisons.
Exactly. But it's how you deal with the prison is, I feel the more important thing. He could become this boring, mundane thing, or he could get relationships, make the best of what his situation is. Which I started feeling that's the way he did. People respected him in jail. He had a almost relationship with people, But Kim visits him in jail. She pretends to be his lawyer, which is funny. I had to take that back, because I thought that she said that her bar card was actually never expired, but I realized that it just didn't have an expiration date, so she could pretend to be a lawyer if she wanted to. But you have of course you're gonna end off this.
By the way, that Kim was wearing a green blouse in that scene.
Oh, was she?
It was black and white, but I'm just saying, if we had seen it in color, we know that green represents a facade, a cover, so.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I won't take credit for this, but this was talked about by Gillen, the writers of the show, showrunners. But they used color in the scene. and I didn't even notice it the first time. Actually, I didn't notice the second time. I had to rewatch this after I heard this because I was like, wait, they did? It's so subtle. But they're talking. Kim gives Saul a cigarette, and then she lights it, and it lights red. Or you see red. You see the cigarette burning. Like I said, it's black and white, so it was like so subtle when they did it in the first place because I just thought it was black and white, but it's actually red. And
it was yellow in the flame of the lighter.
Yeah.
And red on the tip of the cigarette.
Yes. And we always think of that as like a negative thing, but the showrunners actually admitted that the only times they use color and black and white, the black and white scenes, the Gene scenes, was to show what Saul is passionate about. So Saul was passionate about who he was as Saul at the beginning of the series. We talked about this, how when he watched his film, it was in color, the VHS tape or whatever. And he was passionate about being Saul. He misses being Saul. So at the end, when Kim lights a cigarette, he's passionate about her when it comes right down to it. That's like kind of what drives him now. It's not about being Saul. It's not about, screwing people over, but she gives him, I guess, like focus or direction, even if he's in jail.
Moral compass?
Yeah. Moral compass. Yeah. Good. I thought that was interesting. Because like I would have maybe been confused if I actually caught. What's up?
Something you read or a video you saw?
That was I read that.
You gotta send it to me. I want to read that.
Yeah, like I said, there's obviously more to it, but that's like the gist of it. I thought that was just so interesting. Because
it lined up with my theories about color that have been consistent through the whole show.
Yeah.
Is that yellow is criminal, which is also something they said. Yellow is criminal. Sorry, red. Red is criminal.
Yeah.
And yellow is conflict, uncertainty, transition.
Yeah.
So it that makes a lot of sense when he's seeing the reflection, but in the very beginning of the show when he's watching his old videotapes.
Yeah.
And later on when he sees the YouTube video that Marion was watching.
Yeah, we were talking about that, yeah.
We're seeing the yellow and red reflected in his eyes.
Yeah.
It's like conflict and struggle that he's still going through, the criminality that he still is part of him. But it's still there when he's been sentenced to jail for life. There's still some conflict between, like Kim is proud of what he did, but still disappointed he's in jail for life. And I think the yellow flame represents that, and the red of the cigarette that he's smoking, like he is still a criminal. That is, might be burning away. There's a lot of ways you could spin it. And it also makes sense that those moments represent, like emotion that is still in him, because that's another take I had on the black and white, is that the color and the emotion, Kim of his life, the color and emotion of Kim's life that they've left, right?
Yep.
And now it's just this dry, sad, mechanical life of her in Florida and him at Cinnabon. But emotion gets sparked when he thinks about his glory days, when he watches his old tapes, or the fear that comes when he realizes I'm going to get caught, Mary, and figure out who I am, or the passion that still exists between him and Kim, even though he's stuck in jail for the rest of his life. So.
Yeah. This is, just nice. Like, you also realize, because there's a scene like Kim brings up that you had it down to 7 years, and basically you're in here because of me. Like you chose to throw it away, or you chose to confront your past, and now you're in here for life. Like she's proud that he did that, because he could have been out like in 7 years, and he chose to become a good person, I guess you could say, or redeem himself, He
would rather be in jail as a good person than be out of jail as a bad person.
Exactly. And to be honest, to me, I'm proud of him,
Yeah.
So they end it with, Jim walking out of the jail. I'm sorry, the prison, and you see Jimmy's outside, and they're like separated between, the fences. And she walks away, and it cuts out. It's just it's like a bittersweet ending, It's sad, but it's not like completely sad. Like Jimmy's gonna be fine, Kimmy's gonna be fine, but they're not going to ever be together, Um, but she'll be fine because she's going to go back into lawyer, or helping people. I don't know,
I don't think she'll actually be a lawyer again, not anytime soon,
no,
but she can still work in the legal field. She can still be a
exactly.
paralegal or volunteer or whatever else.
Yeah.
So she can, her passion was more about helping people that need it than being a lawyer. She just thought being a lawyer was one way to do that, but if she found another way to do it, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Streamer, how's it going? Streamer just came in.
Right
But
when we're finishing up.
yeah, we're finishing up. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm impressed with how it ended. Makes complete sense. Also, like I said from the beginning, and overall, it's a really good series. Like I said, they should win Best Actor and Actress. I think Kim's character may be one of the best female characters of all time. Me personally, I don't know how you take it, Kim's character, but like I remember like Breaking Bad having like really strong male characters, and you have Skylar and Marie, and they're not as strong or I guess interesting as some, like Gus and Mike and even Walter and Jesse. But like this show, you get like a really strong female character, who in the long run tries to do the right thing. Like I'm proud of Kim on her journey. Proud of the actress how she played Kim. Definitely think she should win Best Actress or at least be nominated. I feel like she's gonna win. I'd be shocked if she doesn't.
Who was nominated? If you didn't know.
Okay, I know Bob or Jimmy is going to be nominated. And he's probably going to win.
Nominations came out, I don't know, a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that.
Yes, Better Call Saul is finished. Sorry.
Kim and Jimmy were nominated for Best Actor and Actress, and the show was nominated for Best Drama. Yeah. And I think they got at least a couple other nominations too. I don't know if any other the performers got nominated. If they did, I can't quite remember.
Yeah, people are like, I hope Nacho does. I feel like Mike.
I think several players were worthy of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like of course Gus and I guess you could say Nacho, Mike.
Lalo.
Who?
Lalo Salamanca.
Oh, Lalo. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
He may be number 3 after Jim and Kimmy.
Yeah, actually. God, yeah. The fact that he was only in the season so little time and he had such a big impact partially have to do with his performance too. Like, he's a fantastic character.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah. I mean, it was a nice roller coaster and a nice journey to watch Better Call Saul. And I'm glad it ended strong.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but I've heard that some people thought that this ending was not that good, which I was shocked. I guess maybe because it's not that much action or something. I thought it had a lot of action, different type of action, drama. I guess it is really drama, but like a lot of character conclusions, defining moments to how the characters ended.
I thought it was a beautiful and perfect ending.
Exactly.
I knew there were going to be people disappointed because I knew that it was going to be a dramatic ending and not an action ending.
Yep.
For the past several weeks, there have been people complaining about show got boring. You know what I mean? And I think those people, they just wanted to go back to Breaking Bad and see cartel people fight it out. And they just want something different than what this show really is. This show is really a drama about the romantic relationship between Kim and Jimmy.
Yep.
And their flaws. And that's what the finale focused on. And that makes sense to me. And that's what I wanted. And but there are a lot of people, understandably, watching the show who want something different. And throughout most of the show, we've kind of gone back and forth between these dramatic and romantic elements, these mysteries and these cons that Jimmy's mixed up in, and his relationship with Chuck and all that have been mixed up with like Mike going after Tuco and Gus going after whatever. Those sort of actiony things have been kind of peppered in, and so I think people who want action have put up with the good drama to get the action they are looking for, But then at the end, that's all been abandoned. We're done with all that cartel action stuff. We're just focusing on the drama of the show, and so all
Yeah.
those people have been upset. But I think it's a kind of a small percent of people. I mean, I don't know, it might even be 10 or 20% of people. But I think that the other 70 or 80 or whatever percent of people who were putting up with the cartel, background action to get this rich drama from these well fleshed out characters.
Mhm.
I think these people love the ending and
Yeah.
love the show and think it's the best ever. And I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I am too.
Part of me even feels like the way they write it. Like I don't know. I don't think that they were trying to have a bittersweet ending and made sure it ended that way. I think they were trying to have a logical ending.
Yes,
and it turns out that's bittersweet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I was telling you, like everything made sense. Like it wasn't like we just got a left curveball hit at us, or thrown at us. Like it just made sense. Like, of course he's going to be arrested. Of course he's going to try to play the plea bargain. Of course Kim's going to have an influence on how this really ends.
I think that's another thing too. People that want a twist, they like the show because of the big surprises.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be too insulting, because there are a lot of ways to take in media, and there's a lot of different levels of analysis that people put into it. But the fact is that almost all the big twists were set up. They weren't really that surprising if you're really paying attention.
Exactly.
If you're now, to be fair, I don't expect everyone to be watching every episode 3 times and taking notes and podcasting about it like we are, right?
Yeah.
But when you do that, you're less surprised by these things because you realize they're setting them up. You realize the characters behaving normally, the plot is progressing naturally. They're not just doing wild, crazy things out of nowhere. But that's why I like it, right?
Yeah.
Because they're doing something that's natural and flows and makes sense. That's the reason that I like it. And so because of that, I liked it all the way through the end, because all the way through the end they kept doing that and it all made sense. But the people who aren't paying enough attention to see that the twists were really set up and inevitable, when there wasn't really a twist this last episode, it was like he got arrested and he went to jail.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what you would expect to happen,
I think like the twist in these episodes, or in this episode, was the characters that they used to bring back. Like Marie, that was a twist. It's not exactly a twist, but like I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it might depend on how you define twist, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Them using Chuck, how they used. I wasn't expecting to see Chuck, but it's more, to me, it's a surprise. It's a neat way of telling a story, and does it make sense to put them in this scene to tell the story? And the answer is yes, obviously, and how they do it. But
the two reasons for disappointment that I've witnessed from people that do complain about it are, one, it was boring, it wasn't enough action, that line, I already talked about that. And then the other is that they think that it doesn't make sense for Jimmy to have given up the 7 years and get stuck with the 80.
Oh, it makes complete sense with his arc if you actually paid attention to the story.
I think that people are frustrated with that because they want Jimmy to win, right? They're excited for him to beat the system.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Jimmy's character's been. That's kind of what Saul's character's been. To be more accurate, And so, it makes sense that people want that, and people want a happy ending, and they want, but the thing is that I think, were doing what was more natural, and I think that what I really want and what is natural is for Jimmy to want redemption.
Yep.
Not to scam the system. That's what he really wants, and a piece of him still gets that point of pride for having scammed. He knows he could have done it, and that might make it easier to accept the 80 years too, knowing that he had outwitted the system and the lawyers and a judge or whatever else. But it wasn't his true goal. It wasn't Jimmy's purpose here.
You could even argue that Kim wasn't even proud of him almost scamming the system like that, but he didn't go through with it. I mean, she was pretty impressed that he knocked it down to 7 years. Like 7 years, damn, that's pretty impressive.
By that.
Yeah.
I think she would have been disappointed.
Exactly.
If it played out like that.
Exactly.
She wouldn't have gone to visit him in jail.
Yep. Exactly. So he really won at the end, if you think about it, because he got the girl. But in a weird way. But no, you're right. It's sad that if people think that that missed the point, I guess. But I mean, that sometimes happens, I guess. But yeah, I very, very satisfied with the ending. Very satisfied with the season, the series. Oh,
I don't know how to say this. It's like a weird thought, but like my part of my satisfaction is in my dissatisfaction. Does that make sense? Like it's sad and disappointing Jimmy is going to jail for so
yes,
long.
yes,
That makes me happy and satisfied.
yes, yes.
Uh,
But yeah,
I think it leaves a lot for you to think about. What it would be like for him in jail, what was going on in his mind when he did it. And I also glad that they didn't try to perfectly tidy up every loose end. Like, what happened to Jeff? Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, yes.
we weren't watching Better Call Jeff, right? We're watching Better Call Saul. So
Also,
I can imagine Jeff, probably gets in a lot of trouble. But I can imagine
yeah,
maybe not as a bad of trouble as he would have gotten in
if you stood with
when they
Saul.
realized he was mixed up with Saul.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, you're right. There's also, this is like, if you think about the title, Saul Gone, or Gone Saul.
All Gone was the title.
Yeah, Saul Gone. It's a spoiler because Saul is gone. Like we talked about, like he gets rid of Saul. He throws it away. He's done with it, or he redeems himself from being Saul. He's now Jimmy at the end.
Clarify that in court, even.
Yep, exactly. So, but yeah, I think that's it. Unless you have anything else to say about the series.
I'll probably think of something 2 minutes after we finish this, and I'll probably be thinking about more things 2 years from now. But
yeah, which
I think for the moment we pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I think that's something
I'm
that
scrolling through my head if there was some talking point that I missed. I can't think of anything.
Sean has brought this up to me multiple times throughout life. That if a show makes you think after you're done watching it, probably a good show, or movie. He kind of brought that up with movies, but like, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are movies that just have like a simple, straight to the point ending, and that's fine. But the good movies, usually after you're done walking out of the theater or turning it off at your home, make you think, and they'll keep making you think, even months or years down the road. So, anyways,
there's a lot of things that can make a show good, like just being entertained as you watch it. Just a fun escape. That's good, and that's what a lot of people are looking for. But I feel like dozens of movies like that get made every year. There's probably 50 movies a year that are fun while you watch it, but then a year later, even a month later, you're probably not thinking about it anymore. Most action comedy type movies and shows not really part of you after you're done watching them. But really good movies or shows, which usually are dramas, become part of you. You think about it years down the road. That sometimes it affects your personality or your decisions. You're on and on. Yeah, and I think this is a show like that. I think this show is really, without like being preachy, I think this show is really about facing the consequences of your actions. Like
that's true.
It's sort of a study on how people deal with their mistakes.
I feel like this is. I don't want to make this sound bad about Breaking Bad, but I feel like Breaking Bad didn't exactly have that message. You could argue it did, I guess, but like, I never thought that Walter was really redeemed. Yeah. He was, I guess, but I never got that feeling. I think
it's like
that's all was
afterthought. It's like in the last couple episodes, like, I don't know, maybe Walter should redeem himself. Yeah, he can kill some Nazis. There we go. I don't think it was like it's thematically integral throughout the course of it. It was well constructed. Like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are both well constructed from the standpoint of like the camera angles and the set design and the costumes and they're both well performed. And, right. All the things that went into creating the show were of high, I think, better in Better Call Saul than Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And that's not so much a knock on Breaking Bad. It's just didn't get worse after they got done with Breaking Bad. They weren't like, all right, now let's make them a worse show. Let's abandon all the lessons we learned and hire worse people to help out, and we'll make it. Like they have a bigger budget, they have more experience, they have better ideas, and it makes sense that they're going to make a show that's better. but beyond just their technical expertise, right? Beyond the production of it, I think it was more relatable characters, right?
Yes.
Watching Jimmy and Kim and whoever else, Mike, struggle with their morality is more interesting than watching Walt abandon his morality,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
uh,
And
I
like,
think that Breaking Bad was a little bit more entertain you while you watch it, right? It was a little more focused on these like shocking moments and these exciting moments. Not that it didn't have suspense or drama or well-developed mysteries. It's not like polar opposites or anything. There's a lot of crossover. There was some action and suspense in Better
yeah,
Call Saul too.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the reason I think one is a 9 and one is a 10, I'm not talking about why one is bad and one is good. I'm talking about why one is great and one is the best of all time, right?
yes,
And that difference I think is the experience I had going in making it, the production quality and all that stuff, and the thematic elements were more meaningful, more deep, and more affecting.
yeah. And it's not to say. By the way, I think the showrunners doing that is extra impressive because you could come away from like a really good show. I'm just gonna throw Quentin Tarantino out there. Quentin Tarantino, when he first started, made Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown and I guess Kill Bill. As he kept getting further and further into his career, you could argue that his earlier works were better. Maybe technically they're not, but there are things that just made like Pulp Fiction stand out from the rest. Reservoir Dogs, which was his first, arguably. I guess he had like 12 rooms or 4 rooms or something. You could argue he wrote or something like that. But anyways, but these show writers didn't get worse. They learned from their mistakes and they made a better show. And I think that's impressive as hell. So.
Yeah, I think Quentin, not to go off on too much of a tangent,
Yeah.
and this might be controversial for some people to
Yeah.
hear me say this, but I think Quentin Tarantino dropped off a lot after his second movie. After Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, I think he got way worse after that. He had some bright spots pop back up through his career. But I think that, and my reasoning is that he had built up these ideas through the course of his life, right? He had all
Exactly.
these ideas stewing inside him, all these movies he was inspired by, and it kind of exploded out in these first two. Now he used up a lot of his creativeness, and he was probably just surrounded by a bunch of people that were like, yeah, whatever you want to do, man. When he's first starting and he hasn't established himself, he was probably a little bit more dependent on the editors and the script writers, like other people in the filmmaking process,
Yeah.
because he's kind of the new guy. So these other people who were already experts were helping out more. But once he's kind of big and famous and in charge, it's probably a little harder for someone to step in and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do it like this. Everyone was like, yeah, man, however you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of areas where he wasn't as good at and had spent up some of his creativity didn't play out as well. And also I think some things like he just likes to include hyper violence. And he just goes more and more over the top with it as the different movies he makes through the course of his career. And some people like that. Once again, different people are looking for different things out of entertainment, media, whatever. So, but it's worth noting, Fishing got nominated for Best Picture. I don't know. Jackie Brown didn't. Whatever other hyper-violent ones that he was making did not get nominated for Best
And
Picture.
also, to be fair,
he did get a few other nominations, though, if I can remember. What's the one?
Inglourious Basterds. I think I don't know if he got nominated, but he may have. But I know the actor who played the antagonist got nominated, and I think he won. If he didn't win, he won the next one. But
I think he won 2 years in a row. Actually,
yeah, a very talented actor. And this is one thing about Quentin Tarantino: he knows how to direct actors, and that's what the Better Call Saul, showrunners know how to do. They know how to make the actor's performance come out best, and that's done through like great script writing, talking to the cast members. Obviously, a lot of it's also on the performance of the actor, actress. And it's also
why they made this show, because they realized how good Bob Odenkirk was. Like that wasn't a plan in the beginning. It was something that Peter Gould realized. Like, I think we could build something just off of him. And they didn't plan from the beginning for Kim to be a main character. They didn't have this. The way things panned out is based largely on how impressed they were with Kim as a performer.
I bet you the same goes with Nacho. I bet you Nacho wasn't supposed to be as big of a character as he came to be. I could be wrong, but I can see, right, this character this performer, we could do something with this.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, but I know they have said it many times about Kim's character.
Oh, cool. That's awesome to know. And it's true. I'm obviously very glad they they chose to include her as a big player in the show. But yeah, I think that's it.
I should probably get going.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for watching Talking Saul with Dancing Sean and me, Flint, and my sis, just hanging out in the background. And I hope to do this. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing this every week now, but once in a while, I have Sean on, and we'll talk about random things, whether it be shows, movies, random things in life. So stay tuned for that at some point in the future. I know he's going to be doing House of Dragons with a person named Aziz on a show or website called History of Westeros. So if you want to catch more of him, watch that. Because I think that's going to happen next week, right?
Yeah, Monday?
Yeah.
A few days from now. Yeah. I think the premiere is this Sunday.
Yeah,
Monday we'll have our coverage of it. So.
And I want to grab Sean at least a little bit on House of Dragons, because I'm not going to do it weekly, but maybe, it's like, if my guess is 8 to 10 episodes. Actually, don't know how many episodes it has.
I think it's 10. I hesitate to say that with complete confidence, but I'm pretty sure it's 10.
Maybe episode 4 or 5, I get him, and closer to the finale, I may grab him, and we could do something like this.
Actually, I can say it with complete confidence. It's 10.
Is it 10?
Because
okay.
The Lord of the Rings series is going to start 2 weeks after the Game of Thrones, and they both end at the same time. So the one has 8, one has 10.
Oh, that's awesome. Anyways, again, thanks for watching. Thanks, Streamer, for being here, and anybody who is out there. And you have a good night. Bye-bye.